Let history speak. The seeds of democracy in Athens. In the heart of ancient Greece, around the 6th century BCE, Athens was a city-state on the cusp of transformation. Picture a bustling city filled with whitewashed buildings, narrow streets, and people going about their daily lives. At this time, Athens was ruled by an oligarchy, a small group of wealthy and powerful men who held all the reins of power. It was a system where the rich got richer and the poor struggled to make ends meet. The common people, the demos, were growing increasingly frustrated. They had no say in the laws that governed them, and their economic situation was dire. Many were in debt, and some even faced the threat of being sold into slavery if they couldn't pay off what they owed. This was the backdrop against which the seeds of democracy were about to be sown. Enter Solon, a wise and just statesman. Think of him as the social reformer of his time, a man with a vision for a more equitable Athens. In 594 BCE, Solon was appointed as an archon, a high-ranking official with the task of addressing the city's problems. He knew that the existing system was broken, and he set out to fix it. Solon's first major move was debt reform. He cancelled all the debts of the common people and prohibited the use of a person's body as collateral for loans. This was a game changer for the poor. Suddenly, they were free from the shackles of debt and could focus on building better lives for themselves. It was like lifting a heavy burden off their shoulders. But Solon didn't stop there. He also reorganized the political system. He divided the Athenian population into 4 classes based on their wealth. Each class had different rights and responsibilities, but importantly, he opened up political participation to a wider group of people. The lowest class, although they couldn't hold the highest offices, still had the right to vote in the assembly. This was a significant step towards a more inclusive government. The assembly, the ecclesia, was where the real action happened. It was a gathering of all the male citizens, where they could debate and vote on important issues. Imagine a large open airspace filled with men in tunics, passionately arguing about war, peace, and the future of the city. Solon's reforms gave the common people a voice in this assembly, a chance to have their opinions heard. However, Solon's reforms were not without their critics. The wealthy oligarchs were furious. They saw their power being eroded, and they resented the newfound influence of the common people. On the other hand, some of the poorer citizens felt that Solon didn't go far enough. They wanted more radical changes, more economic equality. After Solon's time, Athens entered a period of political instability. There were power struggles between different factions, and various tyrants came to power. One such tyrant was Cleisthenes. At first, he seemed like a hero to the common people. He presented himself as a champion of the demos, promising to protect their interests. He even redistributed some of the land from the wealthy to the poor. But as time went on, Cleisthenes became more autocratic. He ruled with an iron fist, suppressing opposition and using force to maintain his power. His rule was a double-edged sword. On one hand, he continued some of Solon's reforms and brought a certain level of stability to Athens. On the other hand, he was a far cry from the democratic ideals that Solon had envisioned. During Cleisthenes' rule, Athens also experienced a cultural renaissance. He encouraged the arts, literature, and architecture. The city became a center of learning and creativity. Temples were built, and poets and philosophers flourished. This cultural boom, however, was still happening under the shadow of tyranny. After Cleisthenes' death, his sons tried to continue his rule, but they were not as popular or as capable. Their tyranny became more oppressive, and the Athenians finally had enough. In 510 BCE, with the help of the Spartans, the Athenians overthrew the tyranny, and once again found themselves at a crossroads. The stage was now set for another great reformer, Cleisthenes. Cleisthenes was a nobleman, but he had a deep-seated belief in the power of the people. He saw the potential for Athens to become a true democracy, a government by the people, for the people. Cleisthenes' most significant reform was the reorganization of the political units of Athens. He divided the city into 10 tribes, each made up of a mix of people from different regions and social classes. This was a brilliant move to break down the old family-based power structures that had dominated Athenian politics for so long. Each tribe elected representatives to serve on the bull, a council of 500 men. The bull was responsible for preparing the agenda for the assembly and overseeing the day-to-day running of the city. It was a powerful body, but it was also more representative of the entire Athenian population. In addition, Cleisthenes introduced the concept of ostracism. This was a way for the Athenians to protect their democracy from potential tyrants. Once a year, the citizens could vote to exile a person from the city for 10 years. The idea was to remove anyone who seemed to be gaining too much power, or who was a threat to the democratic system. Cleisthenes reforms were revolutionary. They transformed Athens from a city-state with a troubled past into a true democracy. The common people now had a real say in how the city was run. The assembly became even more powerful, and the decisions made there affected every aspect of Athenian life. However, democracy in Athens was far from perfect at this stage. Women, slaves, and foreigners still had no political rights. It was a democracy for the male citizens only. But it was a start, a bold experiment in self-governance that would have a profound impact on the future of the Western world. The new democratic system also faced challenges. There were still power struggles within the assembly, and different political factions tried to gain the upper hand. But the foundation had been laid, and Athens was on a path towards becoming the cradle of democracy. As the years went by, the Athenians continued to refine and expand their democratic system. They developed a complex system of courts, where citizens could serve as jurors and decide on legal cases. This further empowered the people and ensured that justice was more evenly distributed. The city also became a hub of intellectual and philosophical debate. Philosophers like Socrates, although he was critical of some aspects of democracy, still thrived in this environment. The democratic system encouraged free thinking and the exchange of ideas, which in turn led to great advancements in science, art, and literature. In the following decades, Athens would face external threats, such as the Persian Wars, but it was the democratic spirit of the Athenians that would help them unite and defend their city-state. The idea that every citizen had a stake in the defense of Athens, that they were all part of a greater whole, gave them the motivation and the strength to face their enemies. The birth of Athenian democracy was not a smooth journey. It was filled with ups and downs, with the efforts of many great men and the struggles of the common people. But it was a journey that would shape the course of history, setting a precedent for future democratic governments around the world. The Golden Age of Athenian democracy. The period following Cleisthenes' reforms marked the beginning of the Golden Age of Athenian democracy. Athens was now a city-state that was truly in the spotlight, both in Greece and beyond. The democratic system had matured, and it was this system that allowed Athens to reach new heights of cultural, political, and military power. Pericles, a charismatic and influential statesman, emerged as the leader of Athens during this golden era. Think of him as the rock star of ancient Athens, a man with a silver tongue and a grand vision for the city. He served as a general and a statesman for many years, from around 461 BCE to 429 BCE. Pericles believed in the power of the people. He was a strong advocate for democracy and worked hard to make the government more accessible to the common man. He increased the pay for public office holders, which meant that even the poorest citizens could afford to take part in the political process. This was a revolutionary idea at the time. It allowed for a more diverse group of people to serve in the government, and it further strengthened the democratic nature of Athens. Under Pericles' leadership, the ecclesia became even more powerful. It was the supreme decision-making body of Athens, and Pericles encouraged more and more citizens to participate in its meetings. The assembly debated and voted on everything from war and peace to public works projects. It was a place where ideas were freely exchanged and the will of the people was expressed. One of Pericles' most famous projects was the construction of the Parthenon. This magnificent temple, dedicated to the goddess Athena, was not just a religious building. It was a symbol of Athenian power, wealth, and cultural achievement. The Parthenon was a masterpiece of architecture, with its columns, sculptures, and intricate details. It was a statement to the world that Athens was a force to be reckoned with. The construction of the Parthenon also had a significant economic impact. It provided jobs for thousands of workers, from architects and sculptors to laborers. It stimulated the local economy and helped to create a sense of pride and unity among the Athenians. The project was funded by the Delian League, an alliance of Greek city-states that Athens led. The Delian League was originally formed to defend Greece against the Persian threat. But over time, Athens used its position of leadership in the League to its own advantage. It turned the League into an empire, using the funds contributed by the other city-states for its own projects, like the Parthenon. This led to resentment among some of the other Greek city-states, but Athens was too powerful to be challenged at this time. Athenian democracy also had a profound impact on the cultural life of the city. The theatre was a central part of Athenian society. Plays were performed in large open-air theatres, and they covered a wide range of topics, from mythology to politics. Playwrights like Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides were household names in Athens. Their plays not only entertained the people, but also made them think about important issues such as justice, morality, and the nature of democracy itself. The educational system in Athens was also unique. Boys were educated in a variety of subjects, including grammar, music, and physical education. They were trained to be well-rounded citizens, capable of participating in the democratic process. The emphasis on education was another factor that contributed to the success of Athenian democracy. An informed and educated citizenry was better able to make decisions about the future of the city. However, the golden age of Athenian democracy was not without its problems. The growing power of Athens and its imperialistic tendencies led to tensions with other Greek city-states, especially Sparta. Sparta was a militaristic city-state with a very different form of government. It was an oligarchy, where power was concentrated in the hands of a few. In 431 BCE, the Peloponnesian War broke out between Athens and Sparta. This was a long and brutal war that would last for almost 30 years. The war had a devastating impact on Athens. The city was besieged, and a plague broke out, killing a large portion of the population, including Pericles himself. The war also exposed some of the weaknesses of Athenian democracy. In the heat of war, the assembly sometimes made hasty and ill-informed decisions. There were power struggles between different political factions, and the democratic system was put to the test. some of the decisions made during the war, such as the Sicilian expedition, were disastrous for Athens. Despite these challenges, the spirit of democracy in Athens did not die. Even during the darkest days of the war, the Athenians continued to believe in their system of government. They fought to preserve their democracy, and although they eventually lost the war to Sparta, the idea of democracy lived on. After the war, Athens went through a period of reconstruction. The democratic system was restored, although it was somewhat weakened. The city-state continued to be an important cultural and intellectual center in Greece. Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, who were influenced by the Athenian democratic experience, continued to develop their ideas about politics, ethics, and the nature of society. Athenian democracy, in its heyday, was a remarkable achievement. It was a system that allowed for the participation of a large number of people in the political process, a system that valued the individual and the collective will of the people. It was not perfect, but it was a model that inspired future generations. In the end, the birth and development of Athenian democracy was a story of human progress. It was a story of how a group of people, through struggle and innovation, were able to create a system of government that was more just and more inclusive. It was a story that would be told and retold throughout history. A story that would continue to shape the way we think about democracy today. If you like this story, please follow, like, and share it.